Shalom, everyone. Welcome back to the Anchors of Hope. This is episode 10. So Mazal Tov to me, Mazal Tov to all of us for coming together. For those of you who have been listening, thank you. For those of you who have been sharing this episode or this podcast with your family, your friends, your networks, your circles of friends, and also sharing feedback. Thank you for sharing feedback. It's important that I get it. Episode 10, and I do believe that every episode does get better, and I want it to be amazing, and I want it to be a great experience for those who listen, and I want us all to walk away feeling like we've learned something. Even myself, even though I prepare the notes and the topic and the title and all, I listen to my own podcast. I listen because not only do I want to give myself some sort of feedback and listen to certain things that I pick up on that I think need to be better, but I actually want to learn something from the topic itself. These are topics that interest me, and by extension, I hope that they interest you. So today we're going to explore a question that October 7th, you remember that date, October 7th, made impossible to ignore. Military, or can military strength alone secure Israel's future? Here's what we learned the hard way following October 7th. And of course, the war that ensued and the quote-unquote victory, although there was lots that we lost. But despite unprecedented intelligence capabilities, despite regional military dominance, Israel found itself not just physically vulnerable, but diplomatically isolated in ways that no amount of military power could address. This isn't a criticism of Israel's, defense forces. It's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement of a deeper truth that Israel's become trapped by its own success in hard power. We've become so excellent at military defense and offense when needed that we've crowded out investment in something equally crucial. It's called soft power. And today I'm going to talk about education diplomacy as an approach, not as an idealistic dream, but as a strategic necessity. Because the future belongs to those who invest in today. I want to share something that should alarm us all. While our adversaries invest heavily in campus influence, academic partnerships, and educational initiatives, these investments shape long-term perceptions over decades. Pro-Israel philanthropy remains disproportionately reactive. We fund emergency responses. We fund defensive initiatives. We respond to crises as they emerge, which is awesome, and it's amazing, and it's inspiring to see. But here's the question. What if we could create conditions where those crises were less likely to occur in the first place? Or if there were frameworks of a presence of mind, of existential programming, programs that exist that provide our communities, our young people, with an approach to speaking about Israel that is more proactive and less reactive. So here's what I mean by the hard power trap. When you're excellent at something, you keep investing in what you know. Israel knows military excellence, no doubt about it. The IDF is one of the most capable fighting forces in the world. But military superiority cannot win hearts and minds. It cannot build the relationships that create diplomatic support. It cannot shape how the next generation understands our story, Israel's story. So think about it this way. A tank can defend a border, but it cannot facilitate a conversation. A missile defense system can intercept rockets, but it cannot intercept hostile narratives on college campuses. Military power protects territory. Soft power protects legitimacy. And here's the uncomfortable truth. We've been operating in crisis mode for so long. I mean, I would say at least 25 years since the Second Intifada and the launch of the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions movement, that we've forgotten how to build infrastructure that makes defense less necessary. So what's the alternative, you ask? What does soft power actually look like in practice? This is where education diplomacy enters the picture, and I want to be very clear about what this is and what it isn't. Education diplomacy is not advocacy. It's not about arming people with talking points. It's not about creating defenders who can win arguments. Instead, education diplomacy is about building relationships, facilitating dialogue across differences, and creating conditions for understanding even amid disagreement. It draws from soft power theory, knowledge diplomacy, and peace education frameworks. Here's the shift. From telling people what to think about Israel to teaching people how to think about complex situations. From defending Israel to engaging authentically with Israel's realities. The inspiring, the wondrous, and the complex challenging. Let me give you a concrete example. Traditional advocacy says, here are 10 facts about Israel's water technology, Israel's innovation, Israel's accomplishments. Now go share them. Education diplomacy says, let's explore how Israel's innovation connects to environmental sustainability, to regional cooperation, and the ethics of resource sharing in conflict zones. What questions does this raise for you? Do you see the difference? One creates advocates, the other creates thoughtful, competent people who can navigate complexity. Think about what's needed. Yeah, advocacy is needed. There's a time and place for it. But overall, we're going to exist in this world forever. So will the state of Israel. So will Am Yisrael, the Jewish people. We need to know how to live with our neighbors. And I got to tell you, for the most part, our neighbors want to live with us. It's the few rotten apples that are just horrific. And those are the ones that we need to take care of with the hard power, if you will. But we can't focus and put all our eggs in that one basket. So if you're thinking, this sounds nice, but how do we actually do it? I want to offer you a concrete framework. 3 populations, 3 strategic investment opportunities. First here is our children and adolescents. We need to build foundational competencies before young people encounter hostile discourse about Israel. This means curriculum development that presents Israel through interdisciplinary lenses, connecting STEM, innovation, archaeology, and culture to diplomatic values. It means teacher training programs that equip educators to facilitate complex dialogue rather than deliver talking points. And it means embedding diplomatic skill sets, active listening, perspective taking, complexity through navigation of complexity, and into youth movements and informal education like sleepaway camps, youth groups. The idea is simple. Diplomatic instincts before divisive debates. The second tier I want to talk about is young adults, college-aged students who face the most intense pressure around Israel engagement. But here's what we make a critical shift. Where we make a critical shift is in the traditional programs that position participants as advocates armed with talking points. Education diplomacy offers something fundamentally different. Immersive experience centered on genuine encounter with Israel's complexity. This means agricultural and cultural diplomacy programs in Israel's northern and southern regions. It means teaching about land, coexistence, and sustainability. It means multi-narrative encounter programs that engage with diverse Israeli perspectives, not just the ones that are easy or comfortable. And it means campus dialogue facilitation training that equips students not to win arguments, or not only to win arguments, but to create spaces for genuine conversation. The third tier I want to talk about is educators and communal professionals. This is the multiplier effect. One trained teacher reaches hundreds, perhaps thousands of students over a career. One skilled facilitator, program director, shapes an entire community or communities. We need professional development institutes, curriculum and pedagogy workshops, facilitation skills training, and ongoing support networks. When we invest in our educators, we're not just changing one person, we're changing an entire ecosystem or ecosystems. So why now? Now, some of you might be thinking this sounds great, but we are in crisis mode. There are hostile narratives on campuses right now. There's anti-Semitism rising right now. We know. We see it. We see it every day. It's not just words. Physical attacks. Don't we need to defend Israel right now? And the answer is, of course, yes. And also yes. Yes, we need to respond to immediate crises. And yes, we need to invest in the long-term infrastructure that makes those crises hopefully less likely. This isn't either or, it's both and. October 7th created both crisis and opportunity. The crisis is obvious. Diplomatic isolation, narrative challenges, generational shifts. But the opportunity is equally significant. Recognition that past approaches are insufficient and openness to new frameworks is important. Here's what I've learned in my work. Foundations can fill critical strategic voids that government institutions and grassroots efforts cannot. Foundations can enable experimentation. They can create sustained infrastructure. They can leverage existing networks. They can measure long-term impacts in ways that emergency responses can never. The strategic question is whether or not to fund defense. It's also whether or not to invest in the building of soft power infrastructure that creates conditions where defense is less necessary. So what would success actually look like? How would we know if education diplomacy is working? Here is the shift in metrics that I'm proposing. Not how many students attend the programs, but how many can facilitate difficult conversations. Not how many talking points were distributed, but how many sustained relationships were formed across differences. Not how many advocacy victories were won, but how many future leaders developed competencies to navigate complexity throughout their careers and their relationships, professional and personal. This is a different game. It requires patience and long-term planning and thinking. It requires trust in processes that unfold over years, not weeks. And it requires an investment in infrastructure that might not show immediate results. But here's what I know from studying soft power initiatives around the world. From the Fulbright program to South Africa's knowledge diplomacy initiatives, education-based soft power works. The question is not whether this approach works. The question is whether the Jewish community will invest in it seriously, strategically, and sustainably. For foundations ready to advance this vision, here are the high-impact opportunities. Fund immersive Israel experiences built on education diplomacy principles, particularly targeting college-aged emerging leaders. Support curriculum development that integrates Israel across disciplines, STEM, arts, innovation, sustainability. Create educator programs that are sustained with support. Build assessment infrastructure to track long-term outcomes. Establish partnerships with anchor institutions to integrate education diplomacy into existing educational ecosystems. And finally, I want to bring this home. I want to bring this home with where we started. Israel's hard power is unquestioned. Its soft power infrastructure remains underdeveloped. Closing this gap is not idealistic, it is a strategic necessity. David Grossman taught us that hope is an anchor thrown toward a better future. But here's what I want to add. That anchor needs infrastructure to hold. It needs a relationship that sustains it. It needs competencies that make it real. Education diplomacy is how we build that infrastructure. Not through emergency responses, not through defensive reactions, but through sustained strategic investment in the soft power that creates conditions for Israel to flourish, not just survive in the generations to come. The field of education diplomacy exists. The theoretical frameworks are developed. The practical tools are ready for implementation. What's missing is coordinated philanthropic investment at scale. The future, my friends, the future belongs to those who invest today. Once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us here at the Anchors of Hope. And let's look forward to better days ahead. Until next time, cast your anchors forward. And remember, Am Yisrael Chai, it's not just a slogan, it's a way of life. Love and light from Israel.